Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. The past 6 weeks or so, we've been talking about melody pretty much exclusively. This week, I got interested in parallel major and minor, parallel minor, where you take at least the third step of a major scale and lower it. Well, what you get is a whole new set of possibilities within the sort of system that you're living in, a new set of potential chords, a new set of melodic sonorities. And so I've got 6 examples of that. Let's dive in. So I want to jump right into this idea of parallel major and minor. And this is a very contemporary way of working with sonorities, but there are some basics we'll have to just establish. So follow along with me. You undoubtedly remember that a major scale's layout is this formula of whole and half steps. I'm going to play the C on the top, although we don't really want to have 2 Cs in our scale, right? 7 notes, major diatonic scale. Now, there are a number of major scales. For instance, this scale here is called the Mixolydian mode, the C's on the top, and it takes the 7th and lowers it. It's still a major scale, and the reason it's major is because the 3rd is major. It is a mode, it's a major mode. Let's take a look at maybe another really useful one, this one, where the 4th step is raised. That's a major mode. It's called the Lydian mode, but it's major. There are combinations of them too. People are very interested in what they call the Lydian flat 7 for jazz. This is a very cool sounding scale and gets used on dominant chords, all the time. All those are major modes, and they're all possible starting places for us. Now, there are some conventional minor modes as well. When I was a young piano student, the first minor scale they teach you is what they call the natural or Aeolian minor. If I hold all these notes down, my computer will say C Aeolian. But it's got some downsides. I mean, it has all of the same notes as the E flat major scale. It is the relative minor of E flat. But one of the biggest downsides of it is this 7th degree. So many composers, especially in the European tradition, preferred to convert that 7th degree to a raised or natural 7th degree to get what my computer correctly identifies as the C harmonic minor. That major 3rd there gives me a dominant chord, which was just so important to European composers. There are many minor modes in the same way that there are many major modes. One of my favorites, and I'm not alone, is the Dorian mode. It's the 2nd step of a major scale, and it's got a minor 3rd, which is the thing that you need for a minor mode. And it's also got a major 6th, but a minor 7th. It's a beautiful sound. The Phrygian mode the 3rd step of the scale is a minor mode. It's a complicated minor mode, but you get the idea, right? Major and minor, they aren't monolithic terms that lock us into something, because the most important aspect of major and minor is what's the 3rd? Is it a major 3rd? 4 half steps. Is it a minor 3rd? 3 half steps. All the other notes can start to sort of wiggle around there. Well, I've got these 6 examples, so I want to take a look at them. Let's go back to the beginning of my sequence and dig in. My first example uses a very simple C ostinato pattern, which converts from C major with a, you'll see it in the melody, a major 3rd, a major 6th, and a major 7th, to C minor with a minor 6th and minor 7th and minor 3rd. And it's basically a pentatonic melody over the top. major sounds have a quality. And this parallel shift to minor, not changing anything, changes the emotional color. This is the utility of the parallel major and minor. And here, just by changing the bass note from C to E flat, it feels kind of like we're in E flat major for a moment, right? There's kind of a peaceful quality to it. I just want to observe that what I've done with the melody is a kind of a strict modulation in place. So I have this set of notes for my melody in C major. And what I do is just create that same set of notes with the C minor sound. So I've got an A becoming A flat and an E becoming E flat. And as that melody is transposed, here you can hear it side by each. As that melody gets transposed, it gets a different color. Here comes the minor. I love that little ostinato. Ostinato, a repeated figure. It's like a riff, right? Ostinato, it comes from a root of the word that means stubborn in Italian or Latin. We have a word in English, obstinate, that's similar. Let's go on to our next example. Instead of chords and melody, a homophonic form, it's a simple arpeggio. Maybe we'd have to add a melody or voiceover or something, and it's very straightforward. A major 7, A minor 7. And I think I shift things around a little bit too, because once you're into that space, it suggests alteration. So here's our A major 7 voicing. And then the same chords, just C sharp is now C, etc. And again, we've got this sense of shifting landscapes, terrains, as we move from one sonority to another. Using a slightly different bass, the F sharp, still in that same major mode, gives us a different color. I love the F sharp and the F. They are part of the system, but when we put them at the bottom of the voicing that way, they really shift the weight of the sound. So if I'm in an A major system, the F sharp is part of that system. It could appear down below. When I'm in the A minor sound, Aeolian, the F is part of that system. It doesn't have to appear here. It could appear down here. And when it does, it shifts the weight, the orientation of all of those notes in the arpeggio. It's a great way to rethink chords and give them a different meaning almost. Now let's go on to our next example. Our next example goes directly to the topic of borrowed chords. If I'm in the key of G, I have a set of chords that I expect to appear. The 2 chord is A minor, the 3 chord is B minor, right? If I move to parallel minor, G minor, the 3 chord is B flat major, the 7 chord is F. It's a whole different kind of world. I can melodicize with a whole set of different notes. I can create a different energy and yet have a pattern maybe that feels the same. So here's an example of that. So here's my G major shape, kind of rising and sinking, well-voiced chords, and then minor, right? And now there's the melody in major. And it's a kind of bluesy, pentatonic sound. And instead of going to the 4 chord for the bridge, what if we just go minor, which is what we do here? Cool sound, right? and then back to major. And honestly, I love the melodic possibilities that we get that way. That's kind of the thing that excites me the most. Let's go on. Our next example is a kind of a classic interlocking hands pattern where we've got a simple major triad, E flat major, alternating with its parallel minor, E flat minor. And I'm going to take my left hand and slide underneath to play two notes like so. So, and that may not be the pattern that you choose to use. Any number of patterns are possible. And also, once you get into it, it's fun to just keep shifting things by half steps. So we've gone from major to its parallel minor and then back again. And then we start saying to ourselves, well, what if I shift that top note down a half step? Get some very interesting results that way. So there's our initial concept, and then off we go. And it can be a beautiful, tranquil sound. But when we just shift individual notes by a half step and move them around, we get a whole new set of chords. And we're gone way beyond parallel major and minor now into whole new sonorities. And this is just exploring. You ask yourself the question, what if? What would happen if I moved that down a half step or that up a half step? A good deal of my own personal work is around these kinds of questions. Let's go to the next example. Well, before we do, I just want to say if this is the second or third video of mine that you've seen and you're getting something out of the channel and you're not subscribed, now's the time to do it. I know 80% of the people who watch my videos regularly are not subscribed, but I'm really hoping to reach a wider music theory composer, songwriter audience with music theory that's not academic, but rather aimed at what you might need to get stuff done. I work from a perspective that says you must become your own theorist. This is what my teacher, Dr. Roland Wiggins, told me and us, his students. And the idea that my music can have a personal integrity, can have shape and form that arises from my ideas about what harmony and melody are, how rhythm works, how structure functions to give meaning to a whole. That's a really powerful idea for me. And I hope it is for you as well. We don't have to copy the ideas of the past, and we don't have to flail wildly in space either. I remember someone once telling me it can be like being at a buffet where there's just tons of food, a lot of which, you just don't care for. Put down what you don't want. Hold on to that's valuable, that you want. You got a nice lunch now. Yay. Well, let's go on to our next example. My next example is a three hands pattern. I've got a simple 3-note chord in the left hand, and I'm using the right hand playing a bass note and then flying over the top to play a couple of little melody notes and then back down again. It's hard to get a steady flowing melody doing that way, but you can get a beautiful keyboard sonority. And what I've done is I've set up a very simple pattern: A minor, C, F, E7 in minor, and then done something very similar in major: A major, C sharp minor, F sharp minor, E7. So you have a sense of it going from minor to major, and it's a beautiful sound, really compelling. So here are the chords in minor. You heard that once already. In a way, this is an accumulation phrase, isn't it? I just added one more note on the top and then the whole thing switches to major. And then back to minor. It's a very cinematic, almost epic sound. Well, we've got one more example, so let's hop to it. My next example is a very black page. If you look at it, there are a lot of notes. It's just 4 notes in each hand, contrary motion arpeggios, which is something that you can do if you practice. The rhythms are identical. They're exact parallel or contrary motions at first, and then at some point, and you can see it happening if you look at the middle voices, there you can see they are in unison. They are all happening at the same time. But at this point, they start to offset. And the reason they offset is because I've changed the length of the right hand phrase so that it becomes a different sort of rhythm. And we've got what's called interference of periodicity. And then at the end of the piece, I pull it back together again. I'm going to leave those highlighted so as we listen, you can hear the effect of the interference of periodicity along with the major-minor change. It's kind of a lot, but this is a minimalist approach to composing, and you get a fascinating result. And then major. And now we're back to lockstep. At speed, that can be very exciting. And it's also great for symphonic music when you can hand out individual parts or voices to different instruments. Listen, parallel major and minor gets used a lot in modern music. And it gets used not just to borrow chords from the parallel minor, which is, I think, probably in pop music the most common usage, the use of the flat 3 major or the flat 7 major, simple backdoor cadences and stuff like that. But it's also incredibly useful in the cases that we looked at here to give us new melodic resources, to change the color of an existing melody, change the character of it in order to tell a story better or just create a different emotional mood. Well, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe, ding the bell to be notified when I do my videos, and I'll see you next time.